Hi, and welcome back. This is another episode that talks about our current plans for our trip to Italy in a couple weeks. We've already talked about how to find airline tickets and how we buy them. Today we're talking about traveling with our dog. Now this is kind of important. If you travel regularly to Italy and you want to bring your pet, you really need to do it right. The savings in money can be tremendous, hundreds of dollars per trip if you do it wrong. The first time you travel with your pet, you're going to definitely need, well, we're talking about traveling from the United States. So the first time you do this, you're definitely going to need to get a USDA health certificate. It's kind of a pain to get, but it's makes traveling pretty easy, and it costs a lot. When we first started 6 years ago, it was fairly reasonably priced. We thought it was kind of expensive then, but now it looks really cheap compared to what vets are charging for this service now. It's gone up 2 or 3 times what we paid before, and in fact, the USDA has some new guidelines on their site about how you should deal with this if you're traveling regularly with your pet, like we do. You will need to travel at least once a year for these savings to kick in. But it's if you're doing regular like we do, because we have an apartment in Italy and we're going back and forth at least twice a year, you can save a lot of money, a lot of hassle, and a lot of time. So the trick is an EU pet passport. Technically, it's required if you spend any time in Europe. You will need to you are required to have one. Though for just visiting occasionally and in general, you may not need one. But you should really consider getting one if you're doing any European travel with a pet, cat or dog, because you could be asked for your pet passport at any point while traveling, and we have on trains particularly. We've had a couple of nasty incidents with conductors who want to go right by the rules, and we were basically escorted off of a train once. Luckily it was our stop, but he felt good about throwing us off the train because we didn't have our pet passport with us. So again, if you're going to be going back and forth and you're going to be there for a while, this is something you should get. I have a video about how we applied, which offices we had to see, and for our area, I even gave where the office is. Now, the reason you want to do this is the USDA health certificate is very definite in how you have to proceed. It's a very short timeline. You have to do it just right, or you could be left hanging. We've gotten very close to possibly missing a flight, and we managed not to do it, but it was nerve-wracking. Basically, you can see your vet 30 days before you travel, but you have to deal with the USDA within a 10-day time frame. That means sending it to them so they can sign the papers and get them back to you, and hopefully there are no issues with your paperwork. Otherwise, it's cutting it real close within that 10-day frame. Right now, we just sent in our paperwork and we're leaving in about 9 days. So we've overnighted the paperwork to Sacramento. If all goes well, by Friday they should be sending it back, and we should have it by Monday, and things will be fine. But the main thing with this is it costs a lot, and it costs a lot each time you travel. You have to see your vet, have your pet looked at, your vaccinations have to be up to date, and then they have to fill out some paperwork. And my experience is you hope to fill it out right. There are so many gotchas with this. We've had vets say, oh, we do this all the time, and send in our paperwork to have the USDA call us and say, you know, paperwork, all the information looks good, but they used a form that's out of date. And literally, it was probably a six-month-old form. They change them too often, and they won't let it pass. They'll make you go through the whole process again, and you have to hope your vet is willing to deal with them on that. Luckily, the USDA will call the vet or call you, and you have to get the paperwork resent, and it's a hassle and it's nerve-wracking. And like I say, it's expensive. Now, the way around this is the EU pet passport. We've had one since Emma's first trip. We looked into it and signed up and got one. The main thing is you have to have it renewed. Not renewed, but you have to have your pet checked by a vet and check their vaccination, basically their rabies certificate, and have it updated in the passport. So they always put in the new expiration date for your rabies shot. That's the biggest thing, but we have a vet who's right next to us, and it's not a big deal. What that allows is no more paperwork, no more expensive USDA health certificate costs. Your pet passport, EU pet passport, is good for travel in both directions, from and to the United States. And our experience is, if you're dealing with a foreign airline, they want to see that pet passport because they're used to it. The two things they're going to want to see from you are your EU pet passport and your rabies health certificate. You should always be carrying both of those. And going and then leaving Europe, again, they're going to look primarily at the EU pet passport. That'll get you through check-in really quick. I had one run in because they were trying to read some English paperwork that was in English, and they could not understand where the expiration date was, and they were holding us up, and we nearly missed our plane. The pet passport has made travel a breeze, and coming into the United States, it has not been a problem. They recognize it, they know what it is, and they let you through if you have your rabies certificate along with it. And now you can have a rabies certificate both either from the US or from a European vet. The biggest thing is getting on a schedule. American rabies shots are good for 3 years. In Italy, a dog's rabies shot is good for 1 year. So when you come the first time to get your pet passport, you have to make sure your dog was vaccinated within the last year. When we got we had it done once, and we had Emma have her rabies shots right before we left. We got there, we got our pet passport. It was good they filled it out because of the American shot and the American certificate. Then a year later, they signed off on it again. But he said, you know, I can't do this the next year. You have to, you need to get a shot now. She had been in 2 years of a 3-year cycle, and he said it was fine health-wise. And so at the 2-year mark, we got her a rabies shot in Italy, and that was good for another year. And like I said, if you keep that up and start getting your rabies shots done in Italy, you're going to be able to stay current with your pet passport. The other thing I found is veterinary care in Italy particularly is very reasonable. When I get a rabies vaccination here, it normally costs $150 with our vet. And in Scalea with our vet, it's about 35 euros. So we'll take that. And generally, visits and other things are much cheaper. We've had to deal with some prescriptions when Emma's had a cough, and they're significantly cheaper than I pay here. So really, if you're doing a lot of traveling to and from Europe, really consider an EU pet passport. It's well worth the time and a little bit of trouble that it takes to get one, and it'll make your traveling so much easier. Like I said, once you have one, it's just a matter of making sure you have that and a current rabies certificate, and you're good to go. Hope this helps, because there's so much to traveling. If you're doing it regularly, you want to try to keep your costs at a minimum and keep them under control. And this is one of the things that really makes a big difference if you want to travel with a pet. It also reduces stress and hassle levels by a third. A good portion of our planning a trip has usually involved getting the USDA certificate. Without having to deal with that, it just wipes out a huge chunk of time that you're going to have to deal with prepping for traveling. So we hope this helps. If you have questions or you have experiences with pet travel, we'd like to hear about them in the comments below. Please subscribe. If you like this video, please give us a like and hit the bell button, and you will be notified about our next installment about our current trip to Europe. Thanks.